has the arrival of the WNBA's biggest star in a generation already ignited a devastating civil war within her own team. Caitlin Clark was heralded as the savior of the Indiana Fever, a generational talent destined to single-handedly lift the franchise from years of obscurity into an era of unprecedented glory. But a recent, stunning announcement made alongside her gritty and respected teammate, Lexie Hull, has sent seismic shockwaves through the entire league, suggesting a deep, toxic fracture festering just beneath the surface. They dropped an absolute bombshell about a rival coach, and in doing so, may have accidentally exposed a massive, unspoken problem brewing behind the scenes in their own locker room. A problem that points directly to their own leadership. The comments were so pointed, so specific, and so utterly unexpected that they left fans and analysts completely shocked, forcing them to question everything they thought they knew about this team's chemistry, its leadership, and its fragile future. What was supposed to be a season of pure hope and unbridled excitement has suddenly been irrevocably clouded by dark whispers of rebellion and mutiny, and it all started with a few carefully chosen and devastatingly effective words of praise for the enemy. The pressure on the Indiana Fever this season isn't just high. It's a completely unprecedented level of global scrutiny that the WNBA has arguably never witnessed for a single team, let alone one led by a rookie. Every single game, whether it's in their home arena in Indianapolis or on the road, transforms into a sold-out, celebrity-filled spectacle. A traveling circus with an army of cameras and microphones trained on one singular player, Caitlin Clark. She is carrying the immense, crushing weight of an entire league's soaring financial and cultural expectations on her two-year-old shoulders. A burden that would make even a seasoned veteran crumble. Every single pass she makes is analyzed in forensic detail and slow motion. Every shot she takes is dissected by a panel of television experts, and every single loss is magnified into a national crisis that is debated endlessly on morning talk shows and sports radio. The Caitlin Clark effect has been an undeniable astronomical blessing for TV ratings, merchandise sales, and league-wide attention. But for the team itself, it has created a suffocating, inescapable pressure cooker environment that is constantly on the verge of a catastrophic explosion. The Fever's well-documented early season struggles weren't just the typical growing pains of a young team. They were humiliating public failures played out on the biggest and brightest stage imaginable. The mounting turnovers, the baffling defensive breakdowns, and the clearly visible moments of on-court frustration became the dominant viral narrative, and it seemed the blinding spotlight was starting to cause a severe degree burn. This challenging journey isn't just about a rookie learning to adapt to the incredible speed and physicality of the professional game. It's about an entire organization desperately trying to survive a media and fan-driven storm that no team has ever had to endure. And within that inescapable chaotic storm, every word spoken, every subtle action, every frustrated sigh, and every seemingly insignificant glance carries an immense, potentially catastrophic weight. What happened next proves that the most dangerous pressure isn't just coming from the outside world. It's the kind that is beginning to crack the very foundation of the team from within. In the chaotic center of this dizzying whirlwind stands Lexie Hull, a player who embodies everything the struggling Fever desperately need. Unyielding grit, a relentless motor, and a defensive tenacity that often goes completely unnoticed and unappreciated in the final box score. While Clark is the undeniable lightning rod, the offensive supernova who draws all the headlines with her low-range threes and brilliant, seemingly impossible no-look assists, Hull is the essential grounding force, the team's blue-collar conscience. As a decorated product of the legendary Stanford University program under Hall of Fame coach Tara Vanderveer, Hull was bred and forged in a culture of championship-level discipline and fundamentally perfect basketball. She comes from a system where winning is not a hopeful accident, but the expected result of meticulous preparation and flawless collective execution. On the court for the Fever, she's often tasked with the thankless, grueling job of guarding the opponent's most dangerous offensive player, doing all the dirty work diving for loose balls, fighting through bone-crushing screens, taking painful charges that doesn't make the highlight reels, but is absolutely essential for any chance at victory. Her on-court bond with Clark is far more than just a simple partnership. It's a deeply symbiotic relationship built on shared experience and a common basketball language learned in elite, structured programs. Clark, the offensive genius, desperately needs a warrior like Hull to handle the toughest defensive assignments, freeing her up to orchestrate the offense. In turn, Hull benefits from the wide-open looks and cutting lanes that Clark's gravitational pull on opposing defenses naturally creates. They are two sides of the same coin, both arriving from top-tier, highly structured winning cultures, and their shared perspective on what it takes to win at the highest level is crucial. That's precisely why when they both spoke out, their words carried the collective weight of the team's frustrated, battle-weary core. It wasn't just the celebrated, media-darling superstar talking. It was the heart and the soul of the team's effort speaking in perfect, alarming, and unified unison. And that powerful, unified voice was about to be aimed like a guided missile in a very unexpected and very dangerous direction. Haunting the Indiana Fever's current state of on-court disarray is the formidable specter of a past leader who now stands on the opposing sideline as one of their most dangerous and respected rivals, Stephanie White. To truly comprehend the gravity and the explosive implications of Clark and Hall's recent comments, you have to understand exactly who Stephanie White is to the city of Indianapolis and the Fever franchise. She isn't just the brilliant and revered head coach of the dominant Connecticut Sun. She's a former and highly successful head coach of the Indiana Fever. The very same coach who, with franchise legend Tamika Catchings leading the charge, took the team all the way to the brink of a championship in the 2015 WNBA Finals. She knows the organization inside and out. She knows the arena, she knows the passionate fan base and music. Most importantly, she knows what a winning culture in Indiana is supposed to look like because she personally built one herself. Her current team, the Connecticut Sun, is a terrifyingly perfect reflection of her deeply ingrained coaching philosophy. They are a disciplined, defensive-minded, and utterly methodical juggernaut that chokes the life out of their opponents. They play with a surgical precision and a shared basketball IQ that stands in stark, almost painful contrast to the Fever's often chaotic, disorganized, and frantic style of play. The Sun don't rely on one singular superstar to bail them out of tough situations. They rely on a complex, beautiful, and interconnected system where every single player knows their role down to the smallest detail and executes it flawlessly on both ends of the court, possession after possession. Stephanie White has meticulously built a powerhouse that embodies everything the young, struggling, and often confused-looking Fever team is not. This stark reality makes her more than just another opponent on the schedule. She represents a painful benchmark, a ghost of what the Fever used to be, and a glaring, unavoidable reminder of what they currently are not. And after one particularly brutal and revealing game, that ghost would become all too real for the Fever's biggest and most important stars, forcing their hand and their voice. The definitive breaking point, the exact moment when all the unspoken frustrations and quiet disappointments finally bubbled violently to the surface, came during a recent, highly anticipated matchup between the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun Day. This wasn't just another game in a long and grueling 82-game season. It was a brutal, humbling, 40-minute lesson in what elite, championship-level professional basketball truly looks like. From the opening tip, Stephanie White's Sun executed their defensive game plan to absolute, suffocating perfection. They swarmed Caitlin Clark with a physical, relentless, and intelligent defense, employing perfectly timed double teams and aggressive, precise rotations that forced her into difficult, off-balance shots and a series of costly, momentum-killing turnovers. It was a masterclass in defensive strategy. The Suns' offense, meanwhile, was a mesmerizing symphony of efficiency, crisp ball movement, and selfless teamwork. Every single pass had a clear purpose. Every screen was set with bone-jarring intent, and every single cut to the basket was timed to absolute perfection. On the other side of the court, the Indiana Fever looked utterly lost, a team completely out of its depth, playing a different, less effective sport. Their offense sputtered and stalled for long stretches, devolving into a series of desperate, low-percentage isolation plays that relied on fleeting moments of individual brilliance, rather than any semblance of a cohesive, practiced strategy. The mounting frustration was painfully visible on the players' faces and in their defeated body language. Shoulders slumped after another missed defensive rotation, exasperated glances shared between teammates after another careless turnover. A team visibly and painfully unraveling in real time under the bright, unforgiving arena lights. As the final buzzer sounded on a decisive and deeply demoralizing Sun victory, the chasm between the two teams was painfully, undeniably clear. One was a well-oiled machine, a testament to elite coaching, meticulous preparation, and a deeply ingrained system-based culture. The other was a collection of immensely talented individual players who were still desperately and publicly searching for a collective identity. It was in the raw, emotionally charged aftermath of this humbling defeat, with the bitter sting of the embarrassing loss still fresh, that the verbal bombshell was finally and irrevocably dropped. In the tense post-game press conference, the media's questions were direct, pointed, and repetitive. What is it that makes the Connecticut Sun so consistently, punishingly difficult to play against? The initial answers from both Caitlin Clark and Lexie Hull started off as standard, cliché-filled athletes speak about playing hard and making shots. But then, the entire tone of the room shifted dramatically into something far more candid, raw, and revealing. Clark, with a look of exhausted but profound respect etched on her face, broke from the usual script. She said, "You just have to give them so much credit. Coach White has them playing like they've been together for a decade. Every single player on that court knows their role and they execute it perfectly on both ends of the floor. There are no mistakes. It's truly impressive to see that kind of structure up close." The key word that hung in the silent air like an accusation was structure. Then Lexie Hull, the team's defensive anchor and a product of a similarly structured collegiate program, reinforced the sentiment with her own pointed and equally damning observation. "They don't make mental errors. That is a direct reflection of coaching. When you face a team that's that disciplined, that is prepared for absolutely everything you try to throw at them, you see the standard. You see what it's supposed to look like. They communicate on a different level." This was the huge, unplanned announcement. This was the bombshell. Two of the Indiana Fever's most important players, their present and their future, weren't just complimenting a worthy opponent. They were openly, almost longingly, admiring the very qualities, impeccable structure, unwavering discipline, elite-level coaching, and flawless execution that their own team so obviously and painfully lacked. The reporters in the room were stunned into silence. Players rarely, if ever, speak with such glowing, specific admiration for a rival coach, especially not in the immediate, raw moments following a tough loss. The compliments for Stephanie White were so detailed and effusive that they immediately begged a terrifying and unavoidable question. What were they really trying to say about their own coach, Christy Sides? These were not just idle, respectful compliments. This was a calculated message delivered on a national stage, a quiet coup unfolding in a press conference. In the highly coded and political language of professional sports, publicly praising a rival coach's system is often the most powerful and direct way of delivering an indirect, but brutal critique of your own situation. By repeatedly and deliberately highlighting Stephanie White's emphasis on structure, discipline, and preparation, Caitlin Clark and Lexie Hull were inadvertently shining a massive, unforgiving spotlight on the perceived absence of those very things on their own team under the leadership of head coach Christy Sides. The unspoken implication was deafeningly clear. We see what a top-tier, organized, and winning system looks like over there, and we are painfully aware that we do not have it here. For fans, analysts, and even the team's own front office, the comments served as a jaw-dropping, behind-the-curtain revelation of a deeply troubled locker room. Was this a deliberate shot across the bow? Was it a carefully orchestrated chess move from the team's franchise-altering superstar and its toughest grinder, signaling their growing dissatisfaction to the powers that be in a way that couldn't be ignored? Coach Sides has often been described by the media as a player's coach, a positive motivator who fosters a supportive environment. But these comments from her two most important players raised an alarming and franchise-altering possibility. Had her leadership style failed to instill the tactical discipline, strategic rigor, and professional accountability required to win at the highest level of basketball? Suddenly, all of the team's ugly on-court struggles, the endless turnovers, the baffling defensive lapses, the chaotic and predictable offense were immediately reframed not as simple growing pains, but as direct symptoms of a much deeper, more troubling problem at the very top of the coaching staff. The huge announcement was never really about Stephanie White. It was a silent, desperate scream for help emerging from within the Indiana Fever's own fractured and disillusioned walls. The fallout from the press conference was immediate, intense, and completely inescapable. Social media platforms like X, Instagram, and TikTok absolutely erupted with thousands upon thousands of fans dissecting every single word, every vocal tone, and every minute facial expression from the now viral video clip. The narrative surrounding the once hopeful team instantly split into two fiercely opposing and hostile camps. One side interpreted Clark and Hull's comments as a clear and undeniable sign of deep-seated frustration and a complete and total lack of faith in their current coaching staff. Phrases like, "They want Christy Sides fired," and "Sides has completely lost the locker room," began to trend nationally, creating a public relations nightmare for the franchise. The other camp, the loyalists, rushed to their defense, arguing that they were simply young, competitive players showing professional respect for a veteran coach, and that the ravenous media was intentionally manufacturing a controversy out of thin air to generate clicks. But in the ruthless, 24/7 world of modern sports media, nuance is always the first casualty in a war for attention. Prominent pundits on major networks like ESPN and Fox Sports immediately began debating the issue, framing it as the first major leadership crisis of Caitlin Clark's professional career. Had her immense, unprecedented star power already become too big, too powerful for the small-market Indiana organization to effectively handle? Was she, and by extension her trusted teammate Hull, already beginning to leverage their significant influence to demand sweeping organizational change, a player-led coup just weeks into her rookie season? The shock among the Fever's loyal fan base was palpable and heartbreaking. They had invested their hearts, their money, and their precious hopes into the excitement of a new era. But it seemed that this bright new era was already plagued by serious, potentially irreparable internal conflict. The seemingly innocent praise for an opposing coach had morphed into a full-blown, franchise-destabilizing controversy, casting a long, dark, an ominous shadow over the entire future of the organization. So, where does the Indiana Fever organization possibly go from here? The candid, revealing words of Caitlin Clark and Lexie Hull, spoken in a moment of raw post-game honesty, now hang over the entire franchise like a gathering dark storm cloud. Was this a calculated power play? A strategic and deliberate move by a generational superstar to signal to the front office that the current standard of coaching and preparation is simply not and will never be acceptable? Or was it merely a rookie mistake? An unguarded moment of genuine admiration that was twisted and blown wildly out of proportion by a media landscape that is perpetually desperate for drama and conflict. The unvarnished truth is likely buried somewhere in the messy, complicated gray area between those two extremes. But in the unforgiving court of public opinion, intent almost doesn't matter anymore. The perception of a deep and serious rift between the team's star players and their head coach has been firmly and perhaps permanently established, and the pressure on Christie's sides has now magnified 1,000-fold. Every substitution she makes, every timeout she calls, and every post-game comment she offers will now be intensely scrutinized through this new, critical, and unforgiving lens. Clark and Hull's announcement has irrevocably and completely changed the entire narrative of the Fever season. The biggest and most important battle for this young team may no longer be against their opponents on the court, but against the insidious doubts and dangerous divisions that now appear to exist within their own franchise. One thing is terrifyingly certain. The future of the Indiana Fever now rests on a razor's edge, and history may one day show that it all traces back to the day its brightest stars decided to publicly praise the ghost of a coach from there.